We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Bava Metzia Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 76b. This Daf is sponsored by David Grossman. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or Daf, see the description box below, and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was dealing with a case where a Balabayas tells a worker to hire workers for him, and the Balabayas says that he's willing to pay 4, and then the worker tells the workers that the Balabayas is willing to pay 3. And so the question is, are the workers really just relying on what they're told, and they're essentially accepting the terms of 3? Or are they really saying, no, if the Balabayas said more than that, we want more than that, we want whatever the Balabayas said, in which case they're only accepting the job if they're going to be paid for. And the Gemara brought a proof from a case that had to do with a get. The case with the get is that the woman says to the shliach, go to my husband, find my husband, and I want you to be a shliach laholacha. I want you to bring the get, but essentially be the shliach of my husband in order to deliver me the get. Now that would mean that she's only divorced at the time she actually receives the get. The shliach goes ahead and says to the husband that he's supposed to be a shliach lekabola. He essentially says that the wife appointed him as her shliach. The divorce would then take place the moment that the shliach receives the get. So the husband then says to the shliach, take it as she said. Here's the get as she said. And the halach over there was that she's not divorced at all. And the understanding is, why is she not divorced at all? It must be that the husband is relying on what this shliach said, meaning to say the husband is relying on the fact that the shliach is a shliach lekabola, and of course the shliach is not a shliach lekabola, and the husband is also not appointing the shliach a shliach laholach at all. And so you see that the husband essentially is relying on what this shliach said, and the same thing should be true over here. The workers are relying on what the worker said. And so the Gemara now says, this is Rav Ashi responding, he says, Hachi Ashta, what kind of comparison are you making between the case of Gedish and the case of the workers? Bishlama Yitzmar Ibchana would make sense if you had the reverse situation. Let's say the situation was as follows. Hiskabeli giti. Let's say the wife says to the shliach, I want you to be a shliach lekabola. Not like in the previous case. In the previous time, the case was that the wife says, go to my husband and become a shliach laholacha. Here the wife is saying, be a shliach lekabola. V'yishtacha amra haveli giti. And then the shliach says to the husband that your wife said I should be a shliach laholacha. I should bring to her the get. Meaning to say, again, your wife said, haveli giti, bring me my get. And then in that case, again, the husband said, Heilach kemosha amra, take it as she said. Now, if that was the situation, and on that situation, Rav Nachman said that Rabba bar Avua said that Rav said, Mishiyagia get liyodo migureshes, then he said that when the get actually reaches his hand, meaning it reaches the hand of the shliach, she is divorced. Let's say that would have been the psak, that would have been the ruling in this particular case. So alma dibura didaka samach. So then you could actually have a proof. You see that he's relying really on what the woman said, meaning the husband is relying on what the wife said, because the wife actually said his skabil ligiti. And what happens is she's divorced the moment the shliach receives the get, which is a shliach lekabola. Then you would have a proof. Inami, or let's say the ruling went the other way. Let's say the ruling was mishihigia get liyada migureshes. Let's say the ruling would have been in this case that she's divorced when the get reaches her hand. So in that case, you would see alma dav dibura dideka samach. Then you would say that the husband rather is relying on what the shliach is saying, meaning to say the shliach said that your wife said haveli gita, your wife said I should be a shliach lo'olacha, and if the ruling is that indeed he is a shliach lo'olacha and she's divorced when she receives the get, so you see that the husband is relying on the shliach. If this was the situation, you could actually conclude from whatever the ruling was whether the husband is relying on the shliach or whether he's just relying on whatever it is, even though he doesn't know, but whatever it is that the wife said. Elahasam, but over there, meaning the case that you actually brought on the previous Amud, there's no proof whatsoever. Mishum da'akar shliach l'shlichusei legamri. Because over there, it could be that what's happening is the shliach is saying he refuses to be a shliach. That's why she's not divorced. Because essentially what he's saying is, shliach lekabola havina, I'm willing to be a shliach lekabola, but laholacha lo havina, I'm not willing to be a shliach laholacha. Meaning to say, the wife said that I want you to go find my husband and be a shliach laholacha, and then when the shliach goes to the husband and says that I'm essentially a shliach lekabola, he's not really a shliach lekabola because the wife never appointed him a shliach lekabola, but he's saying that's all I'm willing to be. I'm not willing to be a shliach laholacha that actually takes this get all the way to the wife. And the Gemara continues, if you want, I could say another answer. This is another answer to the first question of the Gemara on the Mishnah on the previous Amud. The question of the Gemara was, what does it mean when the Mishnah uses the word hitu, that they misled one another? And so the Gemara now answers, Hai tana chazru nami hitu karile. Our Tana, meaning the Tana of our Mishnah, calls chazru, what should have said they retracted. When you're dealing with the owner and the workers, you should really use the word retracted. But our Tana uses the word hitu. That sometimes happens. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, hasocher so umnan, if somebody hires the craftsman, v'hitu es balabais, and they mislead the balabais, you see, we're using the word hitu, even though chazru would have been more appropriate. O balabais hitu son, or the balabais misleads them. Ein lohem zeh zeh el taromis. All they have against one another is a complaint, just like our Mishnah said. Ba'med devarim amur. Now the brisa says, when is this true? Shelo halchu. That's if they didn't go. Aval halchu chamarim velo matzu tvua. Let's say the donkey drivers went and they didn't find the tvua, they didn't find the grain. Or poalin umatzu sadik shilach. Or let's say the workers went and they found that the field was moist. So in that case, nosen lem schar mashulam. He gives them their full pay. However, the brisa qualifies it. Aval eino doma habaton lebarek. And there's no comparison. Someone that comes with a loaded donkey and somebody that comes with a donkey that's not carrying anything. Or osa malacha, somebody who actually does work, liyoshiv ubatel, somebody who's just sitting there and doing nothing. You can't compare the two, and that's why the pay is not going to be exactly full pay. And Rashi explains, Vibo Yisema Ashinuya Deresh Pirka Koy. Again, this answer is going on the very first question in the Perek, Hitu Karilei. Our Mishnah refers to Chazru as Hitu, meaning when it says that they misled one another, that's Bepoalim Ubalabayas Nami Kamer. We're talking about it's the workers and the owner, they're misleading one another. Velo B'da'atu Poalim Hadadi. We're not talking about where the workers mislead one another. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, the Gave Poalim Ubalabayas Nami Kari Luhu Hitu. We find by workers and the Balabayas also you can use the word Hitu. And again, the brisa said, "Ein lahen ze'al ze'el taromis." All they have against one another is a complaint. De amar lahen taskiru atzmechem la'acherim, meaning to say, he says to them, "Go hire yourselves to somebody else. Forget it. I don't need the work." That's how he misled them or retracted, essentially. Ve'enu nami, and in the other way, in the other direction as well, they also amrulei. They said to him, "Ki hadri b'hu." When they retracted, say uschor acherim, go and hire other workers. We don't want to do it. So in such a situation, umiu taromes ika, there is a complaint over here. Sheyutzrichem lechazer zachar poalim v'zachar sochrim, because these ones, this guy's he's gonna have to find other workers. This one's gonna have to find other people to hire. Utvias mamon leka. Now there's a complaint, but there's no actual claim of money. They can't be compensated to hadvarim bialmaninu, because when you hire workers, it's just mere words. There's no formal, essentially no formal contract that binds them, and that's why in such a situation, if there's a retraction, the Brisa is saying, the Mishnah is saying, all you have is a complaint. But then the Brisa qualifies that and says, "B'med devarim amurim." Now, when is this true? That there's no claim, there's no monetary claim if there's a retraction. That's not in all scenarios. That's only b'shelo halchu. That's only if they didn't go l'makom hamalacha. They didn't actually walk to the place where the work was. Uvaboker amar len chozrani bi. In the morning, he just says, "I don't want to do it." So there, they don't have an actual claim of money. But let's say the workers actually went to the place where the work was supposed to take place. For example, let's say they were donkey drivers and he hired them to bring him grain from some other location. And they went, they didn't find anything. Or let's say they're workers, he hired them to work the field. They found that the field was wet and you weren't able to work that field. So in that case, he has to give them the pay for the whole day, the full pay, according to what's appropriate, as will be explained, as the Brisa said, you don't have to pay them the same amount you would pay someone with a donkey that was loaded to somebody now and the donkey doesn't have anything. We essentially have to evaluate donkey drivers. How much would they be willing to take less money in a situation where instead of going with a donkey that's full of a load, instead they're going to have something that's empty. So they already do that evaluation. You don't have to pay them the full pay in that sense. And similarly, Rashi continues, you can't compare somebody who's coming to a field to do work to somebody who's coming to the field and doesn't end up working. How much would a person want to take where he's going to get paid, but he's not actually going to do anything? Instead of working all day, how much would a person be willing to deduct in such a situation? Again, that's what they are going to be paid in this case. And the Brisa continues, in this part of the Brisa is talking about workers who are paid by their job and not paid by their time. The Brisa says, "B'med devarim amurim." When is this true? Shelo hischilu b'malacha. That's if they didn't start the work. Avol hischilu b'malacha. But if they started the work, shaman lahen masha, so we evaluate what it is that they did so far. Ketzad, how so? Kiblu kama likzor b'shnei sloim. Let's say they accepted to harvest a stalk for 2 sela, A sela is 4 dinar, so essentially that's 8 dinar. Katzru chetzia v'inichu chetzia, let's say they did half the job, they only harvested half and they left half. Or beged larug b'shnei slaim, let's say they accepted a garment to weave a garment for 2 sela. And argu chetzio v'inichu chetzio, they wove half of it, but they left the other half. So in that situation, says the Tanakama, shaman lahenes masha asu, we have to evaluate what they did. Hayayav shisha dinarim, let's say the wages have now gone up, and now what is left, let's say the half that is left, it's not going to be 4 dinar, meaning it's not going to be 1 sela, but it's actually 6 dinar. It's 1.5 sela. So the Tanakama says, still no sin lahem sela, you give them a sela, because what they did half the work, they were hired for 2 slaim, so you give them 1 sela. Or they can finish their work, and they can take 2 sela. V'im sela, no sin lahem sela, and if it's a sela, you give them a sela. And Rashi explains, when is this true? It's when they didn't start working. We're going on the very beginning of the Brisa. Until now we're talking about schirus. Again, you're hiring the workers for their time. Now we're explaining kablanos, where you're paying them for a specific job. And so it means, again, when is it true? In a situation where they are choser, they retract, or hu choser, let's say he retracts, ein lahem ela taromas, that all there is a complaint, that's bizman shelo eschil b'melacha. That's true if they didn't start the work yet. Then there's only a complaint. But Rashi continues, aval hischilu b'melacha, but if they started the work, yesh din acher b'neim, so then there's going to be another din between them, there's another ruling. Ma'u hadin, what is the ruling in such a case? Shaman lehen masha asu lefi hatanai. You have to evaluate what they did according to the original conditions. V'yikablu kefi cheshben sha'asu. You simply pay them according to what they did. If they did half the work, they get half the pay according to the Tanakama. So argu chetzia, so for example, if they wove half of it, umagia l'schorin sela lefi tanam, according to the conditions they said they should get a sela. Vav dinarim, let's say the rest of the work, the amount of wages in general has gone up. Now it would be 6 dinar, meaning shemhaya bol liskor sachir lechetzi. If you would try to hire someone to do half the work, eino motzi b'pachos mishisha dinarim, you'd have to pay 6 dinar. Again, it really, according to the original terms, it would be 1 sela of work left, which is just 4 dinar. Now it costs 6 dinar. V'nimsa nifsad balabayis b'masha asad layasos. It's going to come out that the balabais is going to lose out, because if he's going to pay a sela to the workers who did half, and then he's going to pay 6 dinar to the next workers, he's going to pay more than a total of 2 sela. Nevertheless, according to the Tanakama, ein holchen acher ha'asad layasos, we don't follow what the future is going to cost. Elashamin lahenes masha asad lefi cheshbon, to know. Rather, you have to evaluate what they did according to the conditions that they set. V'nosen lahem sela, gives a sela. The less le lahaitana hadetanam masnisin, because the Tanakama of this brisa does not agree with what our Mishnah said of kol hachozer bo yado ala tachton. Again, our Mishnah said that whoever retracts has the lower hand. So over here, if the workers are retracting, they should not be entitled to the full half of their pay, because right now workers have gotten more expensive. It's going to cost the balabais more to complete the job. That's what the Mishnah said, but the Brisa disagrees. The Brisa, the Tanakama of the Brisa holds, you pay them for the work they did according to the original conditions, meaning to say you pay them half the wages because they did half the work. And then the Tanakama concluded, V'im sela. Now let's say the work that's left, he could find workers to do it for the same price, meaning all that's left is to pay a sela. V'mein yafa el sela dinim soin podlin lasos chetzi hasheni b'sela. If you can find workers who could do the second half for a sela, so then no sin len b'mashasu sela, then you pay them again according to what they did. You pay them 1 sela, half the wages for half the work. Well, the kaman parach pshita. Now the Gemara later is going to ask, that seems obvious. Of course, if the workers all cost the same amount at this point in time, of course you're going to pay them for what they did. And the Brisa continues, Rabbi Dosa Omer, Rabbi Dosa says, Shaman lahen masha asad layasos. You have to evaluate what the future is going to cost. Meaning, hayayav shisha dinarim, let's say it's going to cost 6 dinar to complete the job now. The owner's only going to find workers for a higher pay. So then, no sin lam shekel, you only have to give them a shekel. A shekel is just 2 dinar, so that way the total is still going to be the same 8 dinar that he originally had set up. Or yigmru malachtan, or they can finish the work. V'yitzlu shnei slime, and then they can take the 2 slime. That's what they originally agreed upon. V'yim sela, and if it's a sela, again, no sin lem sela, then he gives them a sela. Rabbi Dosa essentially agrees with what our Mishnah said, that they have the lower hand, since they were the ones that backed out. And Rashi explains, Shaman lahen ha'asid la'yasas, you have to evaluate for them what it's going to cost to get these future workers. Rabbi Dosa svir lei, ketana didon. Rabbi Dosa holds like the Tan of our Mishnah. Diamar ha'chozer bo yad ala tachtona. Again, he says that the one who retracts is going to get the lower hand. V'yakev schar masha asu kedei liskor polim. So you're able to hold back their wages in order to hire these new workers that you now have to find. V'ligmor kafi tanai harishon. That way he can complete the work according to the original condition. He was originally going to pay 2 slime, so he can keep it that I'm just paying 2 slime. Sloyim. So therefore, therefore, if hiring these new workers now for the future work is going to be 6 dinar, so nosin lam shekel, he just gives them a shekel. That way the total amount that he's going to pay is 2 sela. If he can find workers who can do it for a sela, then he gives them a sela for the half of the work they did. And again, later on the Gemara is going to ask, isn't that obvious? And the Brisa continues, Bamed Devarim Amurim, when is all of this true? B'davar shein ovid, that's in a situation where it's not going to cause a loss to the owner. Aval b'davar ovid, let's say you have a situation where the owner can really take a loss, so then socher alein omat, and then he's allowed to hire upon them, we'll see Rashi, or he can mislead them. Keitzad matan, how does he mislead them? Omer lehen, he can say to them, Sela kitzatzti lachem, I was going to give you a seller for the remaining work. Bo tulushtayim. Come and I'm going to give you 2, but he's really not going to give them 2. He just has to do something to get them to complete the job. Otherwise, he's going to lose. He's allowed to do that. V'ad kama socher alein, and until what limit is he allowed to hire over and above what he originally decided? Ad arboim v'chamishim zuz. He can even go up to 40 or 50 zuz. And Rashi explains, B'amed devor mamurim deina chozer nifsad ela lefi cheshbon l'Rabbi Dosa u'l'Rabbanan mekavlan b'mesha asu. When do we say it's true that the person who retracted, meaning the worker that retracted, is going to lose according to the calculation Rabbi Dosa had, or according to the Rabbanan, they're going to get paid according to what they did. If they did half the work, they get half the pay. When is all of that true? B'davar she'eino ovid, that's if it doesn't represent a loss of money to the owner. V'af agav de'ein po'al in mitzuyin achshav, even though there are no workers available right now, kidemuki le b'sefer, like we're going to say at the end, she'eino motzi lischor, he can't find anyone to hire, yam tenat shiyim, so he'll be able to wait until he could find. Ho'el v'davar she'eino avidu, because this is a situation where it's not going to be a loss of money just because he can't complete the job right now. He can just wait until he's able to find workers. Aval b'davar shu'avid, let's say it's a situation where if he doesn't find workers right now, we're talking about a loss of money here. If he waits and he can't find workers to hire, even he's not able to find workers even according to the market rate, how it's changed, how wages have gone up. So in this situation, he's essentially desperate. If he doesn't hire somebody, it's going to be a loss. So then socher po'alim acherim alein biyozer michdei scharin. He can actually hire other workers even more than what the pay rate is. Omaton la'elu, or he can mislead these present workers who are refusing to finish. He can mislead them. And the Brisa continues, Bamed devarim amurim, when is this true? Bisman she'ein sham po'alim liskor. That's in a situation where he can't find any workers. Aval yesh sham po'alim liskor, but if there are workers available, v'yamar tseyu schor me'elu, and so the worker who says he's not going to complete the job says, go hire these other workers. So then, ein lo alein ela taromes, then all that he has is a complaint against them. And Rashi explains, Bamed devarim amurim desocher alein, when is it true that he can hire over and above? He can hire for very expensive workers to complete the job. Again, v'she'eino motzi liskor, that's if he's not able to find workers who he can hire, but if he can find workers who he can hire, he should hire those workers. And the Gemara continues, Tani Tana Kame de Rav, the Tana taught before Rav, Nosen lam schar meshulam, you give them their full wages. That's talking about the case where, let's say, they walk to the field, and it turns out the field is wet and they can't do any work. So the Brisa said, you pay them in full. So Amar le Chavivi Amar, so Rav said to him, my uncle said, that refers to Rabbi Chia, my uncle said, Ilu ano havoy lo havaya hivno lehen el kapol batel. If it was me, I'm only going to pay them like a pol batel. They're not actually doing any work. They're sitting there all day, but they're doing no work. So you should pay them like a worker who's doing nothing. V'yata amrit nosin lehem schar meshulam, and you're saying you have to give them the full wages. And so the Gemara says, well, what kind of question is this? V'ala katani. But on the Brisa itself, the Brisa said above, Eino doma habaton lahabarek, and there's no comparison, a donkey that's loaded to a donkey that's coming with nothing. There's no comparison to somebody who's doing work to somebody who's sitting doing nothing. So even the Brisa itself, it wasn't saying you pay them full. It's like we explained above. You pay them according to Paul Batal. It's exactly what the Brisa was saying. What kind of question is that? And so the Gemara says, Lo saimua kameh. The Gemara says when he was teaching the Brisa, he didn't finish the Brisa. He didn't finish that last line. That's why it caused this confusion, and he asked this question. Ika diamri, there are those that say saimua kame, that actually he did finish the Brisa, and it was clear from the one reciting the Brisa that you don't pay full, but you pay according to the amount of a poel batel. V'hachi kamer, but this is what Rav was saying. Rav was saying chabibi amar, that my uncle says yavoy ana, if it was me, lo hava yehivna le klal, I wouldn't pay at all. V'yata amrit kapol batel, and you're saying you pay like a poel batel, meaning Rabbi Chia was actually saying they're not entitled to any pay. And so the Gemara says, Ela kasha hach, but the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, you do have a question over here, because the Brisa says you pay like a poel batel. Why is Rabbi Chia saying you don't pay them at all? And the Gemara answers to that, lo kasha, it's not difficult. Had desaira liari, in one case we're talking where he inspected the land beforehand, mida ursa, he inspected it the night before, and had de lo saira liari mi ursa, in the other case we're talking where he did not inspect the land the night before. And Rashi explains, Tani Tana Bahida Le'el Halchu Chamarim V'lo Matzu. Again, the person who recited the Brisas, he taught this Brisa above about the donkey drivers who go and they don't find the work available. And so Rav said, Chabibi Yomar Dodi Rabbi Chia, means my uncle Rabbi Chia said, Iano Havoi, Iani HaSocher, Lo Havi Yehivna. Again, if I was the one, I would not give them the full pay. The Gemara says, but the Bryce itself says you don't give them the full pay. You pay like a poel batel. And so at first the Gemara said, Lo saimu kamei, lo saimu sof ha-Bryce lefonav. He didn't finish the Bryce in front of him. That's why he had that difficulty. But the other version is, Lo hava yehivna klal, that my uncle said not to pay them at all. The mazlayu garments, just their bad luck that there was no work to do. Vinunami havelu lasuki adatayu shelo yimsu sadalacha. They should have realized that maybe they'll find the field is not in the right condition. They're not able to do the work. And the Gemara said, well, it really depends on the situation. In one case we're talking where they inspected the land the night before. The way Rashi understands that is v'holech hapoalim sham, meaning the workers went to inspect. They saw the field and they didn't realize that it was wet. It was their fault. Or let's say they even checked it and it wasn't wet, but it rained overnight. Leslu klal, in such a situation, so they don't get any pay at all. Because they themselves checked it out and they agreed to the job. That's the conditions that they accept when they were hired to him. And they're not able to do it. They shouldn't have went in the morning. It was essentially, it's considered to be upon them in that situation and they don't get paid. But in the case of lo sayru me'orsa, if they did not inspect it in the night, so then all of haya lo says leiv ledavru lo diam. So then he should have paid attention and he should have let them know, im timsu sadalacha lo atein lachem klum. He should have told them, if you find that the field is wet, I'm not going to give you anything. V'yoivlu kapol batel. Instead, I'm going to give you like a poel batel. That's the distinction in terms of the two rulings. And the Gemara continues, Ki hadiyam Rava, it's like that which Rava said, Haiman da'agar agire l'rifka, if somebody hired workers for tilling a field, v'asa mitru mal yamaya, then the rain came and filled it with water. So it depends, if the land was inspected from the night before, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph.